Some heroes are born to be celebrated. Others shape the world from the shadows, forgotten by everyone, including their own family. I'm not a hero. I'm not a villain, either. I'm Eric. The name no one remembers, not even my older half-brother, the famed Mad Hair. I never craved the spotlight. With a single touch, I could rewrite memories, bend reality, and I used that gift not for power, but for love. I fell for Ambiance, the world's shining symbol of peace, and to keep her close, I created a villain, a fake one. I staged chaos just to keep her nearby, carefully pulling every string. For years, it worked until he returned. My father, the monster, ruin, the villain of villains. And suddenly, my delicate world of lies, love, and sacrifice began to unravel. If you think this is a story about heroes saving the day, you're wrong. This is a story about what it truly costs to love a hero. But before all of that, I was just a shadow of someone louder. My older half-brother, the Mad Hair, was what you'd call a spectacle. He wasn't the strongest special out there, but he was flashy, faster than most, tricky with illusions, and wild enough to keep even the veterans on edge. People remembered him because he made them remember big entrances, bigger fights. Media loved him. Heroes respected him. Villains feared him. And me? I was the quiet one no one noticed trailing behind. That wasn't by accident. You see, my power was subtle, dangerous in a way most wouldn't even understand. I could change memories, erase them, rewrite them, plant new ones. All it took was a single touch. As a kid, I didn't know what I was doing. I'd bump into someone, and suddenly they'd forget why they were mad. Teachers would forget I was late. Other kids would forget my name. At first, I thought I was cursed. Later, I realized I was invisible because I made myself invisible. The day my powers fully manifested, I made my brother forget I existed, not as an act of hate, but to protect myself. He was loud, cocky, and always trying to live up to our father's legacy. I wanted no part of that, and I certainly didn't want our father noticing me. So I vanished, at least in everyone's minds. That was the beginning of a life spent in the margins. While my brother soared across city skylines in flashy battles, I worked from the shadows. Within a year, I had quietly rewritten the minds of world leaders, generals, scientists, and influencers, not to control them, but to steer them. A little push here, a softened heart there. No one ever knew. They just woke up with a strange desire to negotiate peace, fund education, or offer someone a second chance. I didn't take credit. That was never the point. The irony is, I became the most powerful person on the planet, and no one knew my name. Not even my brother. Sometimes I'd watch him on the news, fighting some C-list villain, and I'd smile. He really thought he was keeping the city safe. He had no idea that the biggest threats never even made it to the surface, because I quietly changed the minds of those who would have become monsters. Still, there were days I wished he could remember me. That someone could. But then came college, and she came into my life. Ambiance. The moment I saw her step onto the stage during speech class, everything changed. She remembered me. She saw me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want to disappear. Her name was Amber, though the world knew her as Ambience. Even back then, before she became a global icon, she had a presence that lit up the room. Not just beauty, though she was striking, but something deeper, calming, grounded. Every time she spoke in class, it felt like the world slowed down to listen. Turns out, that wasn't just metaphor. Her power, like mine, wasn't flashy, not at first glance. She radiated a tranquil aura, something you didn't notice until you were already wrapped in it. Near her, your mind softened, anger faded, fear subsided. She could make a riot stop with just her presence. And yet, despite all that power, she was humble, friendly, kind. I should have stayed away. But instead, I sat next to her in class. I cracked jokes. I asked questions. I showed up, me, the invisible one. And Amber responded. She laughed at my jokes. She remembered my name. We started studying together, talking about our dreams. Then late-night coffee runs. Then dates. Then secrets. She told me who she really was. And I told her almost everything. Almost. I couldn't tell her about my power, not really. I told her I had some gift, but not what it could truly do. Not that I could alter anyone's mind, wipe their memories clean, or make them believe in a life they'd never lived. I didn't tell her about the global influence I'd built from the shadows. I especially didn't tell her that even she could become my puppet with a single touch, because I didn't want that kind of love. I didn't want control. I wanted her to choose me, and she did. For a while, it was perfect. We were just two specials hiding in plain sight, pretending to be regular college kids. But she was already growing into her role as Ambiance, taking on more missions, getting more media attention, flying across states and countries to bring peace where chaos ruled. She was needed everywhere. And each time she left, I felt the distance grow. I told myself it was selfish to want her to stay. So I got creative. If the world didn't have villains big enough to keep Ambience close to home, then maybe it was time to invent one. His name was Terror, a phantom from the shadows, chaos incarnate, the perfect counter to everything Ambience stood for. Where she brought peace, he stirred panic. While she calmed riots, he lit the spark. But it was all an illusion. I was Terror. I planned every appearance down to the second. I made sure the public was never in real danger. I manipulated memories, movements, and moments to make it all feel real. Every clash, every narrow escape, it was all part of the show. A carefully choreographed performance designed to keep Amber in the city, close to me. And it worked. For over a year, I balanced both lives. Eric, the loving boyfriend, and Terror, the enigmatic villain. I never used my power directly on her, except once. Just enough to keep her from seeing through the disguise. Just enough to protect the illusion. I told myself it was harmless. She was happy. The city was safe. Nobody truly got hurt. But deep down, I knew I was building a world on lies. And when your foundation is false, it only takes one tremor to bring everything crashing down. That tremor was my father, Ruin, the one man I thought I had erased from existence. The monster who turned boys into weapons. The day he walked back into my life, calling my name in the middle of campus, was the day everything I built began to fall apart. It was supposed to be just another day. Classes in the morning, lunch with Amber, maybe another stage Terror, appearance later in the week. But the second I felt that presence, cold, heavy, choking, I knew he was back. Ruin, my father, the devil who raised us in shadows, taught my older half-brother me how to deceive, destroy, dominate. The man who murdered my mother in front of me when she tried to run away with us. The first thing I ever did with my power, the moment it awakened, was touch him and erase everything. His identity, his memories, his powers. I buried him deep inside his own mind and disappeared. But somehow, he was standing in the middle of my university courtyard, smiling, calling my name. For a second, I froze, not in fear, but in disbelief. This wasn't possible. I had layered so many mental blocks into him, it should have scrambled him for life. He should have been a ghost of himself, locked in some meaningless, empty shell. And yet here he was, laughing, calling out for me like he never left. Amber was gone at the time, away on a humanitarian mission in Southeast Asia. Good. I didn't want her anywhere near him. I knew what Ruin was capable of, and she wasn't ready. Nobody was. I slipped out of the building, heart hammering in my chest, and disappeared into the alley behind campus. I tore into my bag, pulling out pieces of my Terror costume, trying to mask myself as quickly as possible. Not because I needed to hide from my father, but because I needed to hide from her, from Amber. If she saw me confront him, saw me like this, she'd figure everything out. Who I was, what I had done, and she'd never forgive me. But I was too late. By the time I sprinted back toward the main plaza, she was already there, hovering several feet above the ground, surrounded by the faint shimmer of her calming aura. Her face was tight with focus. Her hands glowed. Her presence alone would have been enough to de-escalate any situation, but not this one. Because Ruin didn't feel peace. He devoured it. I felt it ripple across the campus. the twist in the air, the crack in reality. Her aura was being turned inside out, weaponized. Her face went slack, then twisted in pain. Her power wasn't just failing, it was feeding him, amplifying him. Ruin was using her as a battery. I could see it in her eyes. She was losing herself, drowning in despair. I couldn't stay in the shadows anymore. Enough! I shouted, stumbling into the open, my mask only half on, my voice raw and cracking. Amber turned toward me, and time stopped. Recognition flared across her face. Shock, then horror, because in that instant, she saw the truth. Everything. My identity, the lies, the villain I pretended to be, the man I really was. I had built fail-safes into my power, one of which was that if she ever learned the truth, she'd know everything, all at once, so she wouldn't be confused. So I could never manipulate her again. It worked, and it shattered her. I turned my attention to the real threat, my father. Ruin's gaze snapped to me, fury flashing in his dead eyes. Another hero? He spat. Is that what you are now? I didn't flinch. I stood tall, trembling inside but steady on the outside. I'm not a villain. Not anymore. I'm the light in the dark you created. And this ends now. And then I charged forward. No mask, no lies, no illusions. Ready to face the man who made me and finally to unmake him. I didn't hesitate. There was no time for fear, no room for guilt. Everything I had built, every secret I kept, every decision I made, every version of the truth I allowed to exist, it all came down to this moment. I lunged forward, and for the first time in my life, I tore off the chains I had wrapped around my own mind, the mental blocks I had placed, safeguards to prevent myself from becoming like him. They snapped away like thin glass under pressure, and I felt it, the full breadth of my power. Limitless, terrifying, absolute. Ruin didn't expect it. He thought he knew what I was capable of. After all, he trained me once, shaped me into a shadow of himself. But he didn't realize that I had gone far beyond the boy he broke, beyond the manipulative son who erased his memory years ago. I had grown into something more, a force that could unmake him. I reached him in a heartbeat. My fingers pressed against his cheek. He tried to resist. He screamed, his eyes glowing black with every ounce of malice and power he had hoarded across decades of villainy. But I didn't just erase his thoughts this time. I didn't wipe a day, a year, a name. I erased everything. His power, his identity, his very concept of self. Gone. It was like watching a god collapse into dust. 1 second he was ruin, the king of villains, the man who haunted every dark corner of the world. And the next, he was just a broken figure crumpled at my feet. Hollow, vacant, not dead, but gone. Nothing left inside. And for a moment, I felt nothing. Not victory, not relief, just silence. Until I looked up and saw her, Amber, still suspended in the air, still reeling from the psychic chaos Ruin had stirred inside her. But she wasn't looking at him. She was staring at me. And I knew my fail-safe had worked. The moment she saw me, the real me, everything locked into place inside her mind. She saw every hidden corner of my life, how I created a persona of terror, how I orchestrated villain attacks to keep her close to home, how I lied to the world and to her, and how I made sure she was never truly in danger. She knew it all, and even though part of her heart still loved me, her soul recoiled, not because of hatred, but because the truth was just too much. I had taken her agency without her consent. No matter how carefully I planned things, no matter how gently I manipulated the world around her, I had still played God. With her, with everyone. She couldn't unknow it. And I wouldn't let her. I'm sorry, I said, barely above a whisper. I fell in love, and I want to keep you safe. That's all it ever was. She didn't say a word. She just hovered there, tears streaking down her cheeks, glowing softly in the fading light. I turned and walked away, leaving the wreckage of both Ruin and our relationship behind, because I knew what had to happen next. She needed to be free, from me, from everything I'd ever done. And the world, it needed to move forward without fear, without manipulation, without puppeteers in the shadows. So I vanished. 5 years. That's how long it's been since I walked away from the world I once controlled. I live quietly now, somewhere in the Pacific, though I couldn't tell you the name of the island. I don't care to know. It doesn't matter. I move every few years anyway, just long enough to start feeling like a local before I disappear again. Old habits die hard, I guess. I fish in the mornings, surf in the afternoons, and sometimes help patch up boats when they need fixing. Simple work. Honest work. It's a quiet life, peaceful in its own strange way. No governments, no heroes, no schemes. Just the ocean, the wind, and the occasional sunset that looks too perfect to be real. But I remember everything. The truth about my powers was eventually revealed to the public. I made sure of it before I disappeared. I uploaded everything. My journals, video records, psychological profiles I kept on world leaders, even the blueprint of my fail-safes and identity blocks, into a secure archive and leaked across the globe. People panicked at first. They were furious, scared, betrayed. Then something miraculous happened. They didn't change back, even knowing the truth, that the world had been nudged ever so slightly by my hands. People didn't revert to the way they were before. Instead, they leaned in. They listened to one another more. Crime rates stayed down. Governments began cooperating more openly. It wasn't perfect. There's no such thing. But it was better. I never intended to rule the world. I just wanted to make it safer. I just wanted to keep her safe. Amber. Her name still stops my heart. She never came after me. Never sought revenge. Never tried to undo what I'd done. She just went on living, fighting fewer battles, teaching more, speaking at universities, writing books about healing and ethics and heroism. She never mentioned me in public. But every now and then, I'd catch a word, a phrase, a quote she used that made me wonder if she still thought of me, too. I told myself I didn't deserve her forgiveness. Maybe I still don't. But I never erased her memories. That was part of the fail-safe. If she ever found out, she would know everything I did, and that I made sure I couldn't touch her again, not even if I wanted to. That was my final gift to her. And yet, even here, on this forgotten island under a sun-drenched sky, memories still haunt me. Sometimes they hurt. Sometimes they keep me company. Most days, they do both. Then, earlier today, something strange happened. I was standing on the beach, watching a plane overhead cut through the clouds. I let my mind wander back to the night's Amber, and I would lie under the stars, her head on my chest, telling me about her dreams, of peace, of safety, of a world that didn't need heroes. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me again. I've had those visions before. Hallucinations, memories so vivid they bleed into reality. But this was different. The light bent around her. The air shimmered. Her hair floated like it always had when she used her power. She landed gently on the sand in front of me. Amber. I froze. I'm sorry, I whispered. I miss you. I love you. And then she spoke. Eric, I know, and I love you too. Maybe this was real. Maybe it wasn't. But in that moment, it didn't matter. Because even the shadow of love is enough to bring light to a life lived in the dark. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to come home.